Kia ora, Year 9. This video is going to look at how to solve linear equations. Now I can hear you going, not again, we've already solved linear equations, but you haven't solved linear equations like these ones. And I want to say a big thank you to Steward in the UK, because this is his task and his 10 equations, if you can own an equation. So these equations start off looking pretty good, quite innocuous, and just like the ones that we've started. So this first one here, number 1, is a simple two-step equation, but you can see by the time we get to the end, we are going to be solving equations like this and figuring out what n is. So you're probably going, that looks way too hard, miss, I can't do that. But actually you can do this with what we've learned in class so far. So it all comes down to working backwards once we've figured out how the equation got formed. So what I want you to do now is to open up your maths book and have a go at solving these 10 equations and just see how far you get, right? So 1, 2, and 3 are like the ones we've been doing in class lots. 4 is one where you might want to expand the brackets, or you might try something else. But for all of them, if you first try to do the bubble diagram thing, where you think about what happened at each step, and then out pops your answer, you can do all of these equations by working backwards. So I'm going to do one equation per slide and go through them. I'm going to go quite quickly through these ones to here, and then I'm going to slow down a little bit. So make sure that you're actually doing this as you watch, because you don't learn maths by listening to someone talk about it, you learn it by doing it. So here's number 1, with some mess still on the page. We've got 4n minus 3 equals 17. Now we know how to solve this with just algebra or with doing the bubbles. I'm going to start with doing my bubbles here. I start with a number n, so I'm thinking of a number and I call it n. I take that number and I times it by 4. That gives me 4n, 4 times a number. Then I take that and I take away 3. That gives me 4n minus 3, and out pops my answer, which is 17. So to undo that, remember we work in this direction, right? So the first thing that we're going to do, where's my pink pen? We're going to add 3. So 17 plus 3 will get me to 20. And then the opposite of multiplying by 4, which is what we did on the way in, is to divide by 4. So 20 divided by 4 gets me back, and my answer is 5. Right, so we know the answer is 5. I want to show you how we're going to do that, thinking about balancing the equation. So we've got 4n, take away 3 equals 17. First, we add 3 to both sides, and we get 4n is equal to 20. So we can write this like this, plus 3 and plus 3. That's one way to write it. Or we can write it like this, 4n take away 3 plus 3 equals 17 plus 3. Either way, we get this next line of 4n equals 20. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 4. So we get n is equal to 5. So there you go, first one done. Let's look at the next one. Right, n plus 8 divided by 5 is equal to 7. We had a number n. We thought of our number, and then we added 8 to it, and we got n plus 8. We took that number, the n plus 8 number, and we divided it by 5. Whoops, I forgot to put plus 8. And that gave me n plus 8 over 5. And that works out to be 7. So now we're going to work backwards. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to times by 5. So 7 times 5 gets me to 35. Then I'm going to subtract 8, because I'm doing, every time here, I'm doing the opposite operation. Right, and now, where have I got back to? Well, 35 take away 8 gives me 27. Right, so my answer is n equals 27. So if we're writing that out without doing the bubble diagram, this is what we get. N plus 8 divided by 5 equals 7. First, we're going to multiply by 5 on both sides. So we get n plus 8 is equal to 7 5s, which are 35. Now I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So take away 8, take away 8. And I get n is equal to 27. Or if you want to write that out the longer way, you can go like this. N plus 8 over 5 equals 7. We'll put the n plus 8 into a bracket, because this line acts kind of like an invisible bracket. Right, n plus 8 divided by 5 times 5 equals 7 times 5. Right, and the 5 divided by the 5 is just 1. So on this side we've got n plus 8 is equal to 35. We don't really need the brackets anymore because the brackets are used when I'm trying to put things into a kind of artificial group. So now all I have to do is go n plus 8, take away 8 is 35, take away 8. So n gives me 27. But you don't need to write that line out, and you don't need to write that line out. All right, on to number 3. So 2n take away 4 divided by 3 is 6. We had a number n, and we times it by 2. We doubled it, times 2. Then we took that number and we took 4 away from it. 2n take away 4. And then we divided all of that by 3. That gave me 2n take away 4 over 3, and out pops my answer, which is 6. So when I work backwards, this tells me which order to go in. First, I'm going to times by 3. Then I'm going to add 4, and then I'm going to divide by 2. So you can see here we're already up to 3 steps, and we're just going to get more and more steps. I think by the end, let's see, by the end we get up to, I reckon we're going to get to about 8 steps by the end. So number 3 is going to go like this. 2n take away 4 divided by 3 equals 6. So the first thing I do is I'm going to multiply by 3 on both sides. 2n take away 4 is equal to 18. Right, so we've done this. That one's checked off. Now we're going to add 4 to both sides, right? And you can see it's matching up to what we see in the algebra here. So what did I do here? I times by 3. Now I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Sorry about the background noise. Right, I've got 2n is equal to 18 plus 4, which is 22. And it's getting easier and easier as we go. Next step is to divide both sides by 2, and I get n equals 11. So that's my final answer. Now you can check that using the bubble diagram, right? 6 3s here, 6 3s are 18, 18 and 4 is 22, 24 divided by 2 gets me my answer of 11. Right, on to question 4. Now, this one, we have to start with the bubble diagram first. There are actually several ways to solve this problem, but we're going to do a backtracking thing on this first and say, well, how did I start out? I started out with a number n. Okay, so looking up here, and then I took n and I divided by 3. So I got, where's my pen gone? I got n divided by 3. Then I added 5 to that number. So I've got n divided by 3 plus 5. And then I took all of that, right, which is why it's got the brackets around it. Took all of that and I times all of that by 4. So I've got 4 times n plus 3 over n plus 3 plus 5. Right, and that needs to go in my circle, and that equals 40. So using backtracking, I'm going to do the opposite of this, and then the opposite of this. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by 4. Then I'm going to subtract 5. And then, what am I going to do then? I'm going to times by 5. So let's look at the algebra behind that. 4 times n over 3 plus 5 equals 40. So step 1 is to divide by 4. So here we're left with n over 3 plus 5. Now when you're starting out, you might like to keep that in a bracket. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't add anything, but it's not wrong either. So here we've got n divided by 3 plus 5 is 10. Now the next thing I'm going to do is up here. So I've done that one. I'm going to take 5 off both sides. That gives me n divided by 3 is equal to 5. So minus 5, minus 5. And now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply each side by 3. N equals 15, timesing by 3. And if you look at what I've written down here, of course, it matches exactly this order here, working backwards. Right, so divide by 4, divide by 4. Take away 5, and then times by 3. So my final answer is n equals 15. Now some of you will be looking at that and going, hang on, we've got all of this stuff here in the equation. What about expanding the brackets? Right, so we've got brackets here. Could we expand them? Well, yes, we could. It's a different method from backtracking, but it's a good method as well. So I'm going to do this one using that method too. you're finding this hard work though, you might want to stick with backtracking. So we've got 4 times n over 3 plus 5, and that equals 40. I think that was the equation. Yep. So if I expand those brackets out, I get 4n over 3 plus 20 equals 40. Then I get 4n over 3 is equal to 20, right? So I'm subtracting 20 from both sides. Now I'm going to times both sides through by 3. 4n is equal to 60. And now I divide by 4, and I get n is equal to 15. So we can write in what we did at each step. We subtracted 20. Now we're going to times here by 3. Now I'm dividing by 4. Okay, and both those methods work well, and obviously both times we get the same answer, which is n equals 15. Right, on to question 5. So this is one with brackets again. So 3 times 2n plus 8 equals 60. Again, I'm going to do this in 2 ways. If I start with my bubble diagram, we started out with an n. Then we times that number by 2. That gave me 2n. Then I added 8. That gave me 2n plus 8. Finally, I wanted to times all of this by 3. So I'm going to put it into a bracket to keep it together. So we've got times 3. That gives me 3 bracket. 2n plus 8, and out pops 60. So when we go to undo, we're going in this direction. First, we're going to divide by 3. Then we're going to subtract 8. And then we're going to divide by 2. So let's do that now. We've got 3 bracket 2n plus 8 is equal to 60. Dividing by 3 gives me 2n plus 8 equals 20. It's dividing by 3. Now I have 2n equals 12. That's subtracting 8. Now I divide both sides by 2, and I get n equals 6. So that's my final answer. Now let's do it the other way, where I take my equation and I'm going to expand the brackets out. So 3 times 2n plus 8 equals 60. So this is the or other method. 6n plus 24 is equal to 60. 6n is equal to 36. N equals 6. So going over what I've done here, I've divided by 3. Oh no, sorry, I haven't divided by anything here. That's not right. I've just expanded my brackets. Let's get rid of that big mess. Let's see. So here I've expanded the brackets. And now I've subtracted 24 from both sides. And next I've divided by 6. So I don't mind which of these methods you use. I often will get on with it and just expand the brackets though. So that's even when you've been solving equations for years and years, 30-something years of solving linear equations, and I still usually would expand the brackets. With one like this, how do I make that decision? Well, I look at the 3 and I look at the 60, and actually I can see that 3 is a factor of 60, so dividing is going to work quite well. So I might do that. But I also look at it and go, hey, it's really easy to expand that. So I just get on and expand it. It's over to you. Right, on to the next one. We've just got time to do this one. I'm going to do this one without backtracking, just to see if we can do that. So we've got 5n plus 2 over 3 plus 1 equals 10. Now, if you're watching and going, but Miss, you haven't got to the hard ones and they're the fun ones, I'm going to do a separate video with the last 4. Just give me a few minutes. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to deal with that plus 1. I'm going to take that away from both sides. So 5n plus 2 over 3 equals 9. So that's subtracting 1 from each side. Next, I'm going to multiply through by 3. 5n plus 2 is equal to 27. So I'm timesing by 3. Now I'm down to the easy stuff now. Easy 2 steps. I've got 5n equals 25. Subtracting 2 from each side. And now I'm going to have dividing by 5, and I get n is equal to 5. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back with the last ones very soon.